Have you ever wondered why history has been rewritten? Why the truth about the origins of monotheism has been buried for centuries? Why is it that the powerful legacy of Africa, the birthplace of civilization, has been hidden from the world's eyes? What if I told you that the story of God began not with Abraham, but long before, in the heart of Africa? What if the one true God, Yahweh, was known and worshipped in ancient Egypt, the land of pyramids, long before Israel even existed? In this video, we will uncover the truths hidden beneath layers of time and manipulation. We will reveal the forgotten legacy of Africa in the development of monotheism and the deep spiritual connections that were made to Yahweh long before Israel ever claimed him. You will understand why the true story of faith is not just about Abraham, but about an ancient people who walked with God before Israel was even born. From the sacred temples of Egypt to the nomadic tribes of the desert, Yahweh's presence was already there, and the truth was waiting to be remembered. Prepare to be awakened to the reality that the God of Israel was never confined to one people, one land, or one nation. This revelation will shake the very foundation of what we have been taught about the history of faith. You'll see that Yahweh was not a distant deity, but a God who was already speaking, already revealing himself to the world long before the Israelites. The true story of faith didn't start in the deserts of Israel. It started with a people who lived in harmony with Yahweh in the heart of Africa. So take a moment, leave your thoughts in the comments. What do you think the real origin of monotheism is? Like, share and subscribe to dive deeper into this truth. What you're about to discover will change everything. Before the name of Yahweh was known in the land of Israel, before the great Exodus, before the Israelites were even a thought, there was Africa, the cradle of civilization, the birthplace of wisdom, where the concept of a single, eternal God, Yahweh, echoed through the hearts of its people long before any temples were built in Jerusalem. This was not folklore or mythology. This was the truth that has been buried beneath centuries of silence, suppressed by the hands of those who sought to control the narrative. Africa, with its ancient civilizations, held a sacred connection to the divine. In Egypt, long before Moses ever set foot in the land, the concept of the one true God existed, known by many names, but primarily as Amun or Iman, the hidden one. God was worshipped not through idols or statues, but as an invisible, eternal force that governed the cosmos. It was in the divine balance of Medunata, the sacred language of the gods, that the African people spoke of God's will being done on earth as it is in heaven, long before the words of Christ echoed across the centuries. What is so powerful about this truth is that it reveals how the foundation of monotheism, the belief in a single omnipotent creator, didn't begin in the deserts of the Levant, but in the heart of Africa. This is a reality that has been obscured, hidden for reasons we will soon understand. You see, monotheism was not born in isolation, nor was it unique to one people. It was a truth that had already taken root in Africa as the people of the Nile understood the divine order of the universe, a truth passed down through generations, preserved in the temples of ancient Egypt. But why has this story been buried? Why has the African legacy of worshipping the one true God been erased from the pages of history? The answer is simple. To erase Africa from the story of God is to erase a significant part of who we are. It is to remove the divine connection between all people, no matter their race or origin. The erasure of Africa from the narrative of faith is not only an injustice, but a deliberate attempt to reshape history, to redefine who the children of God truly are. Now, let us turn to a name that echoes through the halls of biblical history, Melchizedek, a king, a priest, and a man who served the Most High God long before Israel became a nation. Before Moses ascended Mount Sinai to receive the commandments, before Israel was birthed as a nation, there stood Melchizedek in the land of Salem, a man described in the Bible as both a priest and a king of the Most High God. This is a name that, when properly understood, flips the entire narrative of biblical history on its head. Melchizedek, a man with no genealogy, no beginning or end of days, stood before Abraham in a moment that defies our typical understanding of faith and worship. Abraham, considered the father of monotheism, recognized Melchizedek as one who served the same God, Yahweh, the creator of heaven and earth. And what did Abraham do? He bowed to Melchizedek and offered him a tithe, a sacred act of reverence, acknowledging that Melchizedek was not just a king, but a priest of the one true God. This act is pivotal because it highlights that the worship of Yahweh, the God of Israel, was not exclusive to Israel. It had already been revealed to others, to kings and to priests in lands far from the wilderness where the Israelites would one day roam. This moment is not just a historical account. It is a lesson for us today. It teaches us that the truth of God's existence, His sovereignty, and His presence among His people is not confined to a single people or nation. It was a truth known long before the rise of Israel. Abraham did not bring monotheism into the world. He encountered it in the lands where Melchizedek had already been walking with God. There was a divine order, a cosmic law that connected all people to the Creator, regardless of their origins or bloodlines. And that truth, that universal truth, is still alive today. As we reflect on Melchizedek, we must ask ourselves, why has this story been overshadowed? Why do we continue to believe that the revelation of God started with Israel, when the Bible itself tells us that there were others, people outside of the lineage of Abraham, who knew the same God? The narrative we've been taught is incomplete, and it is time we correct it. By understanding the significance of figures like Melchizedek, we reclaim a larger, more inclusive story of God's divine revelation, a story that transcends borders and nations, one that ties humanity together through the shared worship of the one true God. But the story doesn't end with Melchizedek. Let us consider another figure in the Old Testament, Jethro, the Midianite priest who welcomed Moses into his home and shared with him wisdom that would guide Moses for the rest of his life. Jethro, like Melchizedek, was not an Israelite, but he recognized the God of Israel, Yahweh, and he served him faithfully. This is an important moment in biblical history because it shows us that Yahweh, the God of Israel, was not just known by Israel's ancestors, but by other nations, by other peoples who were not part of Israel's chosen lineage. Jethro was a priest of the Most High, and he recognized the sovereignty of Yahweh before Israel had even formed as a nation. This truth, that God's presence was known and revered by nations outside of Israel, is a powerful reminder that Yahweh is not a God confined to one people. He is the creator of all, the one who reigns over all nations, over all lands, and over all people. Jethro's recognition of Yahweh is a story of inclusion, a story that teaches us that God's love and divine presence extend beyond the boundaries of race, culture, and history. It was a message that transcended time and place, reminding Moses and us that God's plans were never just for one people, but for all who would seek him. Jethro's story also reminds us of the importance of spiritual leadership that transcends lineage. While Moses was the chosen leader of Israel, it was Jethro who taught him some of the most important lessons about leadership, about the importance of community, and about the necessity of relying on God's wisdom to guide his people. It was Jethro, an outsider, who gave Moses the wisdom he needed to lead Israel effectively. This is a powerful lesson for us today. It teaches us that God's wisdom can come from unexpected places, and that those who appear to be outside the circle of faith may just have the very wisdom we need to hear. As we move forward, we see that the story of Yahweh's revelation to humanity did not begin in Israel. It did not begin with Abraham or Moses. It began long before in the hearts of those who walked with God, in the lands where Africa's ancient wisdom and divine knowledge first emerged. From the kings of Salem to the priests of Midian, from the wandering tribes of the desert to the empires of Egypt, God's revelation was always alive, always present, always calling humanity to himself. This is the true story of Yahweh, the story that has been hidden, distorted, and forgotten. It is a story that begins with Africa, with the people who first understood the divine order of the universe, who first recognized the presence of the one true God. And as we move forward, we must ask ourselves, what will we do with this truth? Will we continue to accept the narrow, incomplete narrative that has been handed down to us? Or will we choose to reclaim the full, inclusive story of God's presence in the world? The choice is ours, and the time to act is now. Let us remember the wisdom of Melchizedek, Jethro, and all those who walked with God before Israel ever existed. Let us embrace the truth that Yahweh's love and wisdom were never confined to one people or one place. They were meant for all of humanity, and they continue to call us to unity, to healing, and to the restoration of all that has been lost. Let us walk together in the light of that truth. As we continue to uncover the layers of truth hidden within the ancient narrative, we come upon yet another powerful and transformative figure in the story of God's revelation, Job. His story, often overlooked, stands as a testament to the vast reach of Yahweh's influence, long before Israel was established as a nation. Job, a man from Edom, outside the boundaries of the Promised Land, had no ancestral claim to the chosen people of God. Yet his faith in the one true God is a testament to something far greater, a universal connection to the divine that transcended geography, culture, and lineage. Job's life was not an easy one. He suffered tremendous loss, from his children to his wealth, and even his health. And yet, in the midst of his trials, Job did not curse God. Instead, he cried out in his grief, "Yahweh gave, and Yahweh has taken away. Blessed be the name of Yahweh." In this profound statement, Job recognized that Yahweh, the God of Israel, was not a distant figure, but the God who was sovereign over all creation, even in the midst of hardship. His story is not just one of personal suffering. It is a story of the unwavering trust in the one true God, who, though unseen, is deeply present in the lives of those who seek him. What does Job's story teach us? It teaches us that faith in Yahweh is not bound by borders or bloodlines. Job was not an Israelite, yet he called upon the sacred name of Yahweh, the same God who revealed himself to Moses and the children of Israel. Job's faith, unshaken by his suffering, serves as a powerful reminder that Yahweh is not confined to any one people or place. He is the God of all creation, a God who hears the cries of all those who call upon his name, regardless of their heritage or nation. The lesson here is simple yet profound. Faith in Yahweh transcends boundaries. It's not about where you come from, it's about where your heart is. Job's unwavering trust in Yahweh, despite his overwhelming pain, shows us that true worship is not about circumstance, but about recognizing the sovereignty of God in all aspects of life. His story is an invitation to trust in God's divine plan, even when we cannot see the end of our struggles. It's a call to surrender to the one who is greater than all our pain, knowing that he is working all things for our good. But Job's faith wasn't the only one that reached beyond the borders of Israel. Let us turn to the story of Balaam, another figure from the Bible who, like Job, was outside the lineage of Israel. Balaam, a prophet for hire, lived in a land far removed from the chosen people of God, yet he was called by Yahweh to speak his truth. In the book of Numbers, we see God speak directly to Balaam, even through a donkey, when Balaam was on his way to curse Israel. Despite Balaam's initial reluctance, God used him to deliver a powerful prophecy about the future of Israel, declaring that a star would rise from Jacob and a scepter would come out of Israel. a clear messianic prophecy. Balaam's story is another example of God's sovereignty and his ability to speak to anyone, regardless of their background or belief. Despite Balaam's flawed character and questionable motives, God used him as a vessel to declare his will. This story serves as a powerful reminder that God is not limited by our human understanding or our imperfections. He can use anyone to fulfill his purposes, and sometimes it is those who seem furthest from the divine that he chooses to reveal his truth through. The story of Balaam teaches us that God's plans are not confined to one people, but are for all nations. It is a reminder that the message of Yahweh is universal, meant for all who are willing to listen, no matter their race, ethnicity, or background. Balaam, an outsider, spoke the words of God that shaped the destiny of Israel and pointed forward to the coming Messiah. His story challenges our understanding of who can be a vessel for God's message. It reminds us that no one is outside the reach of God's love, and no one is beyond his calling. As we move forward, we come to the story of the Shasu, a nomadic people who wandered the desert long before Israel was established as a nation. The Shasu of YHW, as they are called in ancient Egyptian records, were among the first to worship Yahweh by name, long before the Israelites. These nomadic tribes who lived in the deserts of Edom and Midian were not part of Israel, yet they carried the name of Yahweh across the wilderness, honoring him as the one true God. The story of the Shasu serves as a powerful reminder that Yahweh's presence was not exclusive to Israel. The ancient records from Egypt reveal that the Shasu, like the Israelites, recognized the one true God, Yahweh, long before the establishment of Israel as a nation. The name of Yahweh was known and revered by these desert-dwelling tribes, who carried his name across the barren lands, wandering but never lost, seeking the same God that Israel would come to worship. The story of the Shasu teaches us that Yahweh was never a God confined to one people. His presence was known across the desert, in the places where Israel would one day walk. The Shasu, though not part of the chosen lineage of Israel, were not outside the divine plan. They were part of the larger story of God's revelation to the world. Their story serves as a reminder that God's love is not exclusive to one group, but is available to all who call upon his name. The Shasu, with their simple but profound faith in Yahweh, show us that God's presence is not confined to temples or cities, but is found in the wilderness, in the hearts of those who seek him. As we reflect on the stories of Job, Balaam, and the Shasu, we begin to see a common thread emerge. The story of Yahweh's revelation is not one that is confined to Israel. It is a story that transcends borders, bloodlines, and nations. From the deserts of Edom to the temples of Egypt, from the wilderness to the cities, Yahweh's presence has been known, worshipped, and revered by all who seek him. These stories invite us to expand our understanding of God's plan and his love. They challenge us to see that God's presence is not limited by our human divisions, but is available to all who open their hearts to him. The stories of these outsiders, Job, Balaam, and the Shasu, remind us that Yahweh is the God of all people, and his love and wisdom are available to all who seek him, no matter their background or heritage. As we continue to explore the depths of God's revelation to the world, let us remember that the story of Yahweh is not a story of exclusion, but of inclusion. It is a story that invites all people from every nation and every walk of life to come and worship the one true God. Just as the Shasu carried the name of Yahweh across the wilderness, just as Balaam spoke God's truth despite his imperfections, just as Job trusted in Yahweh despite his suffering, we are invited to walk with God, no matter where we come from or what we have been through. This is the true story of Yahweh, one that transcends time, culture, and boundaries. It is a story of divine love, of faith that knows no limits, and of a God who has always been and always will be. And it is a story that continues to unfold, inviting all of us to be a part of it. Long before Israel was formed into a nation, before the first stone was laid for the temple in Jerusalem, there was a wandering nomadic people known as the Shasu. These desert dwellers roamed the wilderness, carrying with them the name of Yahweh, the one true God. Their story, hidden in the shadows of history, reveals a truth that has been obscured for too long. The worship of Yahweh was not confined to Israel. The Shasu, an ancient and often forgotten people, knew the name of God long before Israel even existed as a unified nation. The Shasu of YHW, as they are called in Egyptian records, were among the first to recognize and worship Yahweh by name. They lived in the desert regions of Edom, Midian, and the Sinai Peninsula, far from the lands of Israel, yet they carried with them the sacred knowledge of the one true God. These nomads, with no kings, no temples, and no grand cities, understood something profound that many of us today often forget. God is not confined to walls, to temples, or to rituals. God is present wherever people seek Him, wherever hearts yearn for His presence, even in the wilderness. The story of the Shasu challenges us to rethink what we know about God's revelation to humanity. We often view the story of Yahweh as a narrative that begins with Israel, but the truth is, Yahweh's presence was known by many before Israel ever became a nation. The Shasu knew the name of Yahweh, and they worshipped Him in the barren wilderness, where no one else could see. Their faith was not based on a land or a people. It was rooted in the belief that Yahweh, the Creator, was the God of all, not just the God of Israel. They recognized that God is the God of the wilderness, the God of the open skies, the God who dwells beyond temples and shrines. What does the story of the Shasu teach us today? It teaches us that faith in Yahweh is not bound by geography or bloodlines. It is not confined to one people, one culture, or one nation. Yahweh is the God of all creation, and His presence is not limited to the borders we have drawn. Just as the Shasu worshipped Yahweh in the desert, we too can encounter the divine in the wilderness of our own lives, wherever we are, whatever we are going through. The Shasu story is a reminder that God is always present, always ready to reveal Himself to those who seek Him, regardless of their background, their nation, or their status. As we reflect on the Shasu, we are reminded of the universality of God's love. His presence is not just for Israel, not just for the church, but for all people, in all places. His invitation is open to everyone, no matter their history, no matter their ethnicity, no matter where they come from. Just as the Shasu carried the name of Yahweh across the deserts, we are called to carry His name wherever we go, to be His witnesses in the world, to share the truth of His love with those around us. But the story of Yahweh's presence in the world did not end with the Shasu. It continued, and it continues to this day. From the desert, the knowledge of Yahweh spread to the people of Israel, to the prophets, and to the nations. One of the most profound moments in this unfolding story is when Moses, the great leader of Israel, encountered God in the wilderness. It was in the desert, on the sacred ground of Mount Sinai, that Moses received the divine revelation of Yahweh's law. But even as Moses stood before the burning bush and heard the voice of God calling him to lead Israel, he was not the first to encounter Yahweh in the wilderness. Yahweh's name had already been known, had already been worshipped by those like the Shasu, who roamed the desert long before Israel became a nation. This is where we begin to see the depth of the divine plan, a plan that stretches back long before Israel's existence. It was a plan that included the Shasu, the wandering tribes, the nomads, and those who did not belong to Israel's chosen lineage. The revelation of Yahweh was not exclusive to one people. It was intended for all nations, for all peoples, for all who would seek him. And as we move forward in the story of God's revelation to the world, we come to understand that Yahweh's presence, his name and his love were never meant to be confined to one group. They were always meant to spread, to reach beyond the borders of Israel, to touch the hearts of all who call upon his name. From the wilderness of the Shasu to the mountains of Sinai, from the streets of Jerusalem to the ends of the earth, the story of Yahweh is a story of expansion, of inclusion, and of love that transcends all barriers. This truth is powerful. It is healing. It is liberating. It reminds us that God's love is not just for the chosen few, it is for everyone. It is a love that reaches across time, across space, across history. And as we reflect on this, we are called to carry this message forward. We are called to be witnesses of God's universal love, to share the story of Yahweh with a world that is hungry for truth, for healing, and for hope. The story of the Shasu is just one piece of this larger narrative, but it is an important one. It teaches us that God's presence is not confined to temples or places of worship. It is found in the wilderness, in the hearts of those who seek him. It calls us to recognize that Yahweh is not just the God of Israel, but the God of all nations, of all people, of all creation. And it challenges us to live in the light of that truth, to share it with others, and to embrace the universal nature of God's love. In the same way that the Shasu carried the name of Yahweh across the desert, we are called to carry his name into the world. We are called to be his witnesses, his ambassadors, his messengers of hope and love. This is the truth that has been revealed to us, the truth that we must share with others. And as we do, we become part of the larger story of God's revelation to the world, a story that began in the wilderness and continues to unfold today. The story of Yahweh is not a story confined to the pages of the Bible. It is a story that is still being written in our lives, in our hearts, and in the lives of all who seek him. Just as the Shasu knew Yahweh's name in the wilderness, so too can we know him in the wilderness of our own lives. His presence is always with us, always ready to be revealed, always waiting for us to seek him. And as we do, we become part of the larger story of God's love and redemption, a story that transcends time, transcends borders, and transcends history. As we carry the name of Yahweh into the world, let us remember the Shasu, the nomads of the desert, who knew the one true God before Israel even existed. Let us remember that God's love is for all people, in all places, and that his revelation is not confined to any one group or nation. His presence is universal, and his love is for everyone. This is the message we are called to share, and this is the truth that will set the world free. As we come to the end of this journey together, I want you to take a moment and reflect on what we've uncovered. We've explored a story that spans beyond the boundaries of Israel, beyond the walls of temples, and beyond the confines of what many of us have been taught. The story of Yahweh is not a narrow tale, contained within one nation or one people. It is a grand, universal story that begins in the heart of Africa, stretches across the deserts, the mountains and the wilderness, and touches every corner of the earth. From the Shasu, those nomads of the desert, who carried the name of Yahweh long before Israel was even formed, to Job, whose unwavering faith in the face of unspeakable loss teaches us the depth of trust in the Creator, we've seen that God's presence is not limited to one place or time. Yahweh is the God of all nations, of all peoples, of all hearts that seek him. He was worshipped in the wilderness, in the places where no temples stood, by people whose names have been forgotten by history, yet they were never forgotten by God. And now we are called to remember them, to reclaim the lost story of faith that is not exclusive to Israel, but to all humanity. Think of the people we've discussed today: Job, Balaam, the Shasu, Jethro, each of them living in a world where faith in the one true God was already alive, long before the rise of Israel. Each of them bearing witness to the truth that Yahweh was never a God confined to one people, but a God who reigns over all creation. Their faith, their stories, are not just relics of the past. They are living truths that continue to speak to us today. They remind us that God's love knows no bounds, that His grace extends to every tribe, every tongue, and every nation. As we reflect on these truths, we are called to expand our understanding of God's plan. We are invited to see that Yahweh's presence is with all who seek Him, no matter where they are, no matter who they are. The divine revelation is not limited to the pages of the Bible, but is still unfolding in our lives, in our hearts, and in the world around us. The story of Yahweh is a story of love, a love that reaches out to all people, calling us to walk in His light, to share His message, and to embrace the universal nature of His grace. Now, as we move forward, we must ask ourselves, what do we do with this truth? How do we live in the light of this revelation? It's easy to think of faith as something confined to rituals or places of worship. But the truth is, faith is a living, breathing thing that exists wherever we choose to seek God. It exists in the wilderness, in the struggles, in the moments of doubt and pain. It exists in the quiet places where we encounter the divine. And it is our task to carry this truth with us into the world. To share the love of Yahweh, not just with those who already know Him, but with all who are still searching for His presence. If this video has brought something meaningful to your heart, if it has helped you find light in the midst of your struggles, if it has spoken to your soul, I invite you to share your energy with me. By liking this video, by subscribing, and by leaving a comment, you help me continue to share these powerful truths with the world. Your support, no matter how small, is invaluable to me. It fuels me to keep going, to keep creating content that opens hearts and minds to the boundless love of Yahweh. I thank you with all my heart for being here, for listening, and for being part of this journey. Together, we are reclaiming the truth that Yahweh is the God of all people, that His love is universal, and that His light shines in every corner of the earth. I pray that you continue to walk in His light, to share His love, and to remember the stories of those who knew Him long before Israel became a nation. Your support means more than words can express, and I am deeply grateful for your presence in this community. May Yahweh's love continue to guide you, to fill your heart with peace, and to remind you that you are never alone. Whether you find yourself in the wilderness, in the deserts of your own life, or standing in the midst of a storm, know that Yahweh is with you. He is the God of all, and His love knows no bounds. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me. Together, we are walking in His light, and together, we are spreading His truth to the world.